Thank you, church. Certainly good to be with you this morning. Am I on back there? Okay, all right. Couldn't hear myself. All right. So I know there's some in here that have never heard me preach before. It's because I don't do it very often. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm the nuts and bolts kind of pastor. I'm the operations guy. I don't want to be up on this stage every day. I'm the introvert back in the corner while Todd and Matthew are out high-fiving everybody. I'm just assessing the situation. So on staff meeting, I can say, hey, did you see this, this, and this? Well, it's because you're too busy high-fiving everybody. You don't see everything. So that's kind of my role here. I've been here a little over 2.5 years now, and I've always told you guys this is the best decision we ever made to come here. And so just let me lay out kind of how today's going to go. I've got a short message. Now, this is Tracy short, not Todd short. All right? Todd could do announcements for 20 minutes and not skip a beat. But I've got something really short I want to share with you guys, and I got a couple that's going to come and share their testimony. And today's a special day. We're going to have a commissioning service for our care team ministry that we started back a few months ago. They've gone through their training, and we're going to commission them today. So that's kind of how today's going to go. So I don't know what you think some of the most pressing needs in the world is today. And I'm going to warn you, I'm going to share some stats with you here in a minute, and it's going to be really, really depressing. But hang on, we're going to end happy. So don't get really depressed here. So I just want to share with you some stats that just kind of overwhelm me. In the state of Georgia, at any given time, there's 10,500 homeless people. These are adults. Most of you go downtown, you say, I see that many downtown. No, that's statewide. At any given time, there's 10,500 homeless people in our state. 815 of those are family households. 801 of those are veterans. 596 are young adults between the age 18 and 24. Then almost 1,200 that experience what they call chronic homelessness. They're just in and out constantly. This next number, 38,474 public school students experience homelessness at some time during the year. Now, the reason that number is a little different, you do the math, you're like, wait a minute, every household's got 40 kids. What they consider homelessness for a public school student is anyone that's not in their own home. So they may be couch surfing, they may be living in a hotel, something that you wouldn't consider homeless. That's how they get that number. We average about 2,000 people a year that flee other countries and seek refuge here in Georgia. So most of that goes through the city of Clarkston. There's a refugee center. We have a church plant there that's in our association. Pastor Jamshed, he ministers to the Pakistan Urdu language people that come through that refugee center. So keep him in prayer because those people come there and they don't stay there very long. They go somewhere else. But he's doing a really good job of equipping those people. And they're going out to places like New York and Chicago, and they're carrying the gospel with them. So be sure and be in prayer for him. We have, on average, about 15,000 children in the foster care system in the state of Georgia. Now, if you want to do math, there's a little over 13,000 churches in the state of Georgia, too. That's a different sermon, a different time. I'm just going to let that sit there, though. There are 3,600 minors that are sold into human trafficking each year in the state of Georgia. The average human trafficker makes $75,000 a week trafficking. Most of them are children. So, depressed yet? I could go on and on about what the poverty rate is, about how people have to choose between food and medicine, going about the drug epidemic we have in this county. We do have a drug epidemic in this county. We just don't see it because we're wealthy enough we can afford it. We can buy our own drugs. We don't have to steal for it. Or we could talk about the fact that half the men in this room are going to be diagnosed with cancer. A third of the women are going to be diagnosed with cancer at some point in their life. So it's just like, well, it's just too much. You just throw your hands up in the air and you say, there's nothing I can do to fix all this. We turn off the news when we don't like it because we don't think we can make a difference. But as Christians, we're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to care for others. I know we've got our own little personal tragedies going on with our families, with our neighbors. We all know people that are going through a crisis. As a church, we get phone calls almost on a daily basis, people seeking help. And that gets overwhelming too. We try to get them in the right places, the right organizations that can help them out. I think for a lot of us, the problem is just awareness. A long time ago, and some of you may remember this, the only poverty we knew about was the poverty that we saw in front of us. The only natural disaster you knew about was if it affected your state, maybe, or your county, or maybe you read a little article in a paper about it happening somewhere. Now as soon as something happened, we see it on our phone. There's an earthquake here, there's a flood here, there's a mass shooting, there's an accident on I-85. Oh, look what the president just tweeted, It just gets overwhelming, all this information, and we just try to shut it down. But as Christians, we're taught to care for one another. So let's look how the Apostle Paul said it to the letter he wrote to the Christians in Galatia. Galatians 6, verse 9. Let us not become weary in doing good. You ever got tired of doing good? You ever got saying, this is a one-way street. I'm not getting anything back. I don't like this anymore. Do not become weary for doing good, for in the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. You do understand proper time's not your time, right? I just give this homeless guy $10. Somebody's going to buy me lunch today, right? That's not how it works. In God's time, or proper time, we'll reap a harvest if we do not give up. Therefore, as you have opportunity, that word can mean time, let us do good to all people, especially of those who belong to the family of believers. So I'm going to put this in my words. So stay strong. You got a reward coming. And when you have the opportunity, do good to everybody, especially your brothers and sisters in Christ. So let me introduce this phrase to you this morning. Do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. Amen. Doesn't that sound better than having to say, I got to fix this or I got to fix that? No. Do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. I think the reason we don't do a very good job of this is that because kind of the way we were taught as a child. Moms, don't get mad at me for what I'm about to say. But you probably heard this from your mother. You probably heard it from teachers, coaches. They all said this: if I let you do it, I got to let everybody do it. And that just stuck with us. And I don't run a daycare either, so that would be a totally different scenario. But that's just stuck with us through our childhood. That idea is really not true. We probably argued with our parents. Well, just let me and don't tell anybody, But it's just a wrong idea that we've carried with us through our childhood. But it's actually our responsibility as Christians to do for one what we wish we could do for everyone. Don't be overwhelmed by the whole picture. Just focus on one person at a time. And as Christians, we just can't afford to crawl in that hole where we just can't do anything at all because we just get so overwhelmed. It really comes down to what's fair and what's right. Life's not always fair. Your mama wasn't always fair either. God's not fair either, but he's just. So let's choose to do the right thing. I know it's not an easy thing to do, but I've got 3 tips that I want to give to you to help you do this. Number 1 is go deep rather than wide. So maybe you've got a passion for a certain group. Maybe it's middle school kids. Maybe it's single moms. Maybe it's cancer patients. So find a small group like that and go deep with them. Don't just have a general interest. Find that small group of people that you're interested in, that you got a passion for, and go deep. So go deep rather than wide. Wide's easy. Wide's writing a check. Here, I want to help out. Or wide is, let me pray for you, and then walk off and never do anything else. Follow up. Go deep. Really learn how to understand this person or this group. Number 2 is go long-term rather than short-term. This is going to be a long-term commitment to make a difference in people's lives. It ain't going to be easy. It's going to be messy. It's going to take more energy than you realize. But you got to commit to it. When God nudges you, and then all of a sudden you have a face in front of you instead of a demographic or a statistic, then you have to go deep and you have to go long. I want to give you an example of this, and this is not a pride thing. This is the only thing I think about to talk about this morning. So a couple of years ago, God really put a nudge on me to work on racial reconciliation. It started with the One Race movement that we had a couple of years ago. I've really been working on that in the past couple of years, getting more educated and reading books from people that don't look like me and looking at their point of view. So what I'm looking at this summer, I'm going to spend 6 months with a group of men that are very diverse. And within that group of men, we're going to pair up. And I'm going to spend time each week with someone that doesn't look like me, or that someone has a different background than me. And it's going to take years to do this, but that's what you do. You go deep, you go long. The last thing you need to do is you got to give time, not just your money. And that's probably the hardest for us, because everybody in here is rich. You don't think you are, but you are. I mean, you've got change in a cup holder somewhere. You've got change on a dresser. You got change in a drawer somewhere. You've got change that people somewhere would give anything to have money laying around. So we love to give money. It just makes us feel better. We'll write a $100 check to whatever, But be careful. Your donations do help the general cause, but it's not an excuse that, I gave money, so I don't have to get involved. You tie it to your church, but if you really want to see benefit and really want to see rewards, get plugged in, serve. That's where the blessings come from. We support Family Promise, but the real blessing is going out and serving and working with those families in Family Promise. That's where that's at. So, quick recap. Do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. Go deep rather than wide. Go long term rather than short term. And give time, not just money. See, wasn't that short enough for you? Okay. So this, see, Todd, you go short, they clap for you.
That's an amen, I don't know mine.
Yeah. So what I just spoke to you about doing for one person at a time, that's really our vision for our care ministry team here at Stone Point. Our care team, we started with the idea as a cancer care ministry. Last year, I was invited to attend training down at the Cancer Treatment Centers of America down in Noonan. And I was able to spend 2 days with the chaplains there and their spiritual team. I learned some valuable insights on caring for those in cancer. I was able to tour their facilities, kind of see things through the eye of a cancer patient. At that time, we'd had a couple of people in our church that were kind of on the backside of cancer treatments and surgeries, and we're on the backside of that, and we're doing good. But my good friends Paul and Rebecca had just gotten their diagnosis, and I didn't know what to do. I know what to do for a hospital visit. I know how to pray for someone for surgery. I know how to just be there sometime. But this was different. This was the C word. And, I knew people were coming to Rebecca's side, but I consider Paul one of my best friends. And I thought, what do I need to do for him? I didn't know. So I went to this training with him in mind specifically. And the training I got there was very, very valuable. And I probably didn't get it right all the time, but at least I had a better understanding of cancer patients and caregivers and what they needed. Because Paul was thrown into the role of caregiver really quick. And I wanted to be able to support him and Rebecca and their family the best that I could. So at this time, our friends Paul and Rebecca have asked if they could share their testimony. And share about the journey they've been through in this last year almost. So if you would welcome them to the stage this morning.
Fair warning.
There we are. Fair warning, Rebecca does not normally speak in public. She's much happier behind the computer back there running the slides. I know. It's publicly private. It's kind of, and, in discussing this with Tracy, he has no idea what we were going to share this morning. And quite frankly, I don't either. So, last year we got news that nobody is prepared for. I know exactly where I was when the call came in, because it's the most unlikely place for somebody that looks like this to be, which is the barber's chair. Literally just about to get a haircut. I promise I was. And Rebecca called, and I knew what the news was before she said a word, because I could hear her sobbing in the phone. And it's truly not something you're prepared for. It's devastating, and it really does shatter you to the core. It shakes you to the core, in terms of, it tests your faith. It really makes you understand what you believe, and helps you realize that what you believe is truth, and it will challenge what you believe to determine if it's the truth or if it's not. And if you want to speak to what it was like getting the call, then I'll back up to the things that prepared us, because she received the call from the doctor. You're welcome.
Yeah, I was home alone with both the boys. I had a biopsy on Monday, and I got the call on Thursday. And I actually called the day before, because they're like, oh, it should only take about 2 days. And they're like, no, we don't have the results back. So they called on Thursday, and I was like, okay, it's been a while. It's probably good news, right? Good news takes a while. And they're like, no. So they called, and they're like, I actually had 3 biopsies done, and she said all 3 came back positive for cancer. It actually took a week and a half before I could get into a doctor to tell me what type of cancer and how bad it was. And when we saw the doctor and they told us what type of cancer it was, unfortunately, they're like, that's the type you actually don't want when you have breast cancer. So not only was it breast cancer, it was stage 3, and it's triple negative, which is the type you don't want.
We didn't realize it, but God had really prepared the road ahead of us before we were even on it, in that the diagnosis came in May. I started working for a new company in February 1st of last year. I was previously working for Forsyth County, was getting very frustrated with management and things that were happening there. And it just happened, one of my software vendors told me, I don't know if you heard, but Michael's leaving. Michael, and strangely enough, Michael left to go to school to become a pastor. He said, so, that's because I just kind of haven't talked to you in a while. What's going on? What's new? Well, Michael's leaving. That's really interesting. He said, why? And I said, let me call you tonight. And it just worked out that Michael was leaving. I've been supporting this software for the last 3.5 years, for the county, and I was familiar with it, and I was interested in moving, and I basically laid it out. Hey, if you're looking to replace him, I'd be interested in talking to you about it. Every single call that I got from him related to that change and that move happened either at Life Group or in the middle of rehearsal for the worship team or doing something related to our service here at the church. And he finally said, look, the more I think about it, the more I can't not hire you. And are you okay with working from home? Absolutely. Not knowing that I would be needed at home a whole lot more in just a few short months. Are you okay with, the time difference and being on call sometimes when it's like I'm on call right now, funny enough. Are you, being on call sometimes where it's not normal business hours? Totally fine. I'm on board. Let's do this. I see God's hands all over it. I can work from home. I can be there for my family if needed. And, at the same time, I also started talking to Rebecca of, hey, we need to have a plan in place for the inevitability of, hey, Paul just had a heart attack or something happened to Paul. We need to go to the hospital. What are we going to do? And then if you had asked me in a million years if I thought it was going to be a medical emergency involving Rebecca, it wouldn't have. And as I said at the beginning, it really brings you to kind of I like to call it my Mark 9:24 moment. I believe, help my unbelief, because this diagnosis immediately, your flesh wants to say, it's over. It's going to be the worst case scenario. There's nothing that we can do other than what the doctors can do, and it's too big. There's no way this is going to be overcome. But then, so you have to overcome that flesh and really the human element of it's the end of the world, to realize that God is truly bigger than the cancer, than whatever the storm is. And from the beginning, getting to that point, it was hard that first week standing up here as the worship leader. It's like my world is crumbling around. Our world is crumbling around us from all of this, because we don't know what's going to happen. Our world is crumbling around. Let's lead folks in prayer and praise and worship of God. We're going to praise Him for what we've seen Him do. We're going to worship Him for who He is, and it's a true heart check and a self. It was hard. That's all I'm going to say. But getting to that point of help me overcome my unbelief, and realizing that we over the last year have sang the song "Raise a Hallelujah" a lot, it kind of became our theme song through this whole thing. We're going to sing in the middle of the storm. We're going to let you're going to hear our praises roar. We're gonna continue to praise louder than the unbelief is the line in that song that really, that's what we need to be doing. We need to just, God is going to work this out one way or another. And it may not be what we want, it may not be what we like, but His glory will show at the end of this. So I don't know if you want to chime in at any point. I can keep going, but my wife is like Tracy. She's an introvert, likes to hide in the back and, observe. We've referred to her as the Jane Goodall of our group of friends over the years, because she just likes to sit in the back and observe the apes as we do stupid things. So it's funny because it's true. But over the last year, we have seen through the church, through the beginnings of the care ministry, one, y'all's love for us, but also your love for Christ. In that, Jesus was asked what was the greatest commandment, and He gave two things: love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, which was the first. And He said the second is just like it: love your neighbor as yourself. And over the last year, we have seen that from the church here, the church at large, people all over that have been praying, sending gifts, calling to check in. We've got a list a mile long that we want to say thank you for here in a second. So, but if you want to, you can jump in. You've got a microphone. It's okay. This is the danger of Todd giving me an open mic. It's
No, the church has been there, literally from the day of diagnosis. So I reached out because Paul wasn't home, and I was just like, I need to talk to someone right now, because no one expects at 39 that you're going to get a call that you have cancer, especially with two young kids at home. It was just like, what? No. And even with the diagnosis, they're like, you're actually about 20 years ahead of the game. It's a older woman's cancer. So yeah, it was like I was too young for this. But yeah, I reached out even from the very first day and was texting people and calling people, and I'm like, I just need to talk. And they were there just to talk, just to listen to me, just tried to get through this, what am I going to do? I'm a stay-at-home mom. I've got to care for these two kids. How am I going to go through this? What are we going to do? And week and a half later, I had a diagnosis, and the very next day, I had scans on a Friday. Monday, I had 3 scans, and I had people there with me because I was just like, I can't do this alone. This is not something I can go through alone. And they were there already to drive me to my scans and get what needed to be done. And yeah.
It was really overwhelming, and it's funny because Tracy talked about, he was going to try to figure out what a caregiver might need, and because we had just gotten the diagnosis, and if you had asked me at that moment, look, we want to be there for you, what do you need? I would have just gone, I have no idea, because staring at you're staring down this long path, not knowing where it goes, and you don't know what you're going to need tomorrow at this point. The only thing that I could say is just keep praying. Just, keep praying for us. That'll be good for right now. But then, from the beginning when I called Todd and told him this is what's going on, Rebecca's going to start chemo. I've talked to my boss. He said, whatever time you need, take it. That's the other thing that was a huge blessing in this situation. If I would have stayed at the previous job, I would have been limited to whatever PTO I had. I took this job being told I had a week off if I needed it, and my boss was just like, your family's more important. You deal with that. You do, as long as you're pulling your weight when you're working, that's all I care about. We really tell people 5 days of PTO the first year just in case they don't work out, so we have something we can, write up or to as a means of separation. So whatever time you need, take it. And but I called Todd, told him about it. He immediately said, we're going to set up a meal train. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And it ended up being almost half a year that people were bringing food to us twice a week. Mm-hmm. In spite of us being roughly 45 minutes from the church, in terms of where we live, we, and again, rides to and from chemo, which for somebody to come all the way from Cumming, some of y'all came from even further south than the church, all the way up to us, an hour away, drive to chemo, drive Rebecca back, sitting with her at chemo, so that she wasn't alone, which, having sat with her through at least one of the chemo sessions.
You made two.
I made two. I know.
He also had to watch our children, so
right.
yeah.
He was like, you guys get a choice. Do you want to watch the kids or do you want to give her a lift? It's
somehow it was always
somebody always
Rebecca.
wanted to drive Rebecca and not watch the kids. It's but sitting in that room and seeing how many people were sitting there alone, and I can't imagine. I know that y'all were there with her while she was going through that. People were checking in on me regularly while I was going through that. I can't imagine either as a caretaker or a patient having to do that alone. See what else? Rides to and from doctor's appointments, which sometimes it was driving out to Canton. Mm-hmm. There was at least one trip to Canton, I think, that Wendy took with you.
Canton.
Was there one to Atlanta too?
There was one to Atlanta. There was one to Atlanta when I got my wig that obviously I'm not wearing. I wore it a few times. It's a little itchy.
Clothes shopping for clothes for after surgery.
Yep.
Y'all came out. I was just kind of talking about my weekend plans about, I got to get the mulch done and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And Saturday I had like 8 people at the house suddenly helping me mulch, putting quarter round around our new floors that I hadn't gotten to yet, things like that were just huge because you're not thinking about what do I need to do in the house right now, that this project over here is still not finished. The floor is moving while we walk on it because there's nothing keeping it down, things like that. But y'all stepped up huge and had, again, showed us the love of Christ, and we're really his hands and feet. There's even more here. I mean, they're watching the boys during minor surgeries and appointments that I had to go to. Mm-hmm. And even during the meal train time, we were gifted many gift cards that, if you have a good day, go enjoy it. And so we could go out to eat with the family.
Which was nice.
It was very nice. It was huge.
We could be, a so-called normal family on some days and not the being stuck at home and just being the cancer patient and the caregiver. It was nice to have that opportunity to just go out with the boys and just be like, okay, it's a good day.
We're normal right now.
We're normal right now. And unfortunately, it was very much, okay, no, it's a good day or it's a bad day. And I didn't know if either one until really I woke up each morning and how my body was going to feel.
But y'all, it's been amazing, and for that we do say thank you for everything over the last year. It's blown our minds how much support we have had through the church, and I might be speaking for both of us, maybe just myself. I would not have made it through this last year without y'all.
Yeah, I don't know how it would have, what we would have done.
And that's why I'm thrilled to be able to talk about this morning as you're getting ready to commission the care team, because a lot of people think pastoral ministry, pastoral care is the pastor has visited you. The pastor came to the hospital, the pastor did this, the pastor did that. And as this church grows, the pastor can only do so much because he's one person. But and his job will end up being to equip y'all to be able to do the things that he's not able to do, the visiting, the driving, the taking meals, the visiting folks in the hospital or visiting with the family while somebody else is in the hospital. And that truly is what pastoral care ministry is. And it's amazing that we are at a point where we are getting that rolling and that we have a team in place. So wanted to, again, thank you.
Yes.
How much time do we have? Because I can... Am I going longer than Todd does normally? Or? Ooh, okay, Will. I'm going to let Todd handle that one. So throughout this whole thing, we knew as we were going down this road that there was also going to be something huge at the end of it. That, you know, we were really feeling just God kind of saying, stay with me and stay on this road with me. You know, I'm with you. Don't look away. I've got something big in store for y'all at the end of this. And which I'm about to make it as awkward as it was when I talked to Todd about it. So we knew something big was happening in spite of the negative and the fight of with cancer. We knew something big was happening in our lives that was gonna be just something huge that we would never have imagined. And that is shortly before, and God kind of showed it to us before the diagnosis. Shortly before we found out about Rebecca having breast cancer, I connected with some folks, and really it was just kind of amazing how many little pieces in terms of things in common God put together in chatting with them. And we you know, continue just to they continue to pray with us through Rebecca's cancer. The only thing that was weird about it was folks that live in the hometown that we left 11 years ago and said, we are never going back there, ever. It's not going to happen.
Never, never,
ever.
Don't ever say that.
And that's the thing. So we this morning also have to share with you that God has been putting this together for the last year. The folks that I connected with were some folks at a church in Orlando. They were looking for a drummer on a Saturday night because their drummer was sick. And I just happened to say, hey, we visit all the time. We're going to come check y'all out. Where are you guys at? And they said, Altamont Springs. And I said, I grew up in Altamont Springs. That's really weird. And then I looked at their Facebook profile. I'm like, oh, that's really funny. We all went to the same high school. Curious. We start chatting, and they fire back at me, oh, yeah, we looked at your profile. By the way, we're Philadelphia Eagles fans. Sorry, Tracy. And I was like, okay, this is really weird. And so then they tell me, oh, yeah, you know our pastor? When did you graduate? And I said, a while ago. He said, well, our pastor was probably a security guard and track coach while you were there. Okay, that's really weird. Okay, so I pull out the yearbook, and sure enough, there he was. Well, as we continued to talk, and this is probably going to be the hardest part of what we talk about or share this morning, we started to realize that God has plans for us that involve us having to go back to Orlando, where we said we would never go, ever again.
Never, ever.
So, it got to the point where it was kind of like, well, I don't want him to send a big fish and make us go, because we saw what happened to Jonah. And really being kind of thrown up onto a beach outside of Orlando by a fish is not my idea of a good time. So we're going to have to really look at this. And so we are starting now to share it with the worship team this morning, shared it with Todd a couple of weeks ago. We really feel that God has called us back to Orlando. And so with all of the storm that we've been through this last this last year, the amazing thing in store is to step into a staff role at a church in Orlando, and we're excited about it, but we're also sad because we're gonna be leaving just an amazing church family who has really, really, really been with us through the biggest storm of our lives. And
Biggest and long storm.
right.
They've still, you guys have still been there.
It wasn't just like,
Been
okay,
almost a
they're still
year.
going through that. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It was, okay, until it's over, we're going to continue to be there. And it's with both sadness and joy, because we're excited about what God has in store both here at Stone Point, as well as what God has in store for us in Orlando at the church we're going to be going to serve at. And so we're hoping y'all will celebrate that with us, because we are going to miss you, and we're still already planning trips like for fall festivals, and she's already planned, okay, if we come back for a weekend and we do it right, we can do these 3 festivals and visit Stone Point and see everybody we want to see all in 3 days. And I'm just like, okay, you plan it. And so we are working through that. It's kind of it's bittersweet for us because we love y'all. We really do. And y'all have been the most amazing church family that we could have ever asked for. But the cool thing about it is we never asked for it because God put it all together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not an accident that everybody is here at Stone Point. So I think that's about all we have to share this morning, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Again, we had no idea what exactly we were going to share except for a couple bullet points. So, Tracy, you want us to leave? We can go.
He's like,
All right, you can have the
okay.
stage back. But again, real quick, we do want to say thank you. As
Very
a church
much.
family, y'all have been so amazing.
Yes.
I just want to say that I love both you guys, and the selfish part of me is really, really sad that you're leaving. But I'm excited and I celebrate that you're being obedient to God's will. And God's got more for you out there than I've got for you here. I promise you that. So we send you out with prayer, and we will continue to pray for you on your journey, man. Thank you, guys. So as we wrap up here this morning, I want to tell you what happened after I came back from training. We decided we would put a care team together here at Stone Point. So I got together with my associate mom, Miss Judy, because she's had lots of training and stuff like this. She actually got extensive training in Stephen's ministry through the Methodist Church, and so she had a lot of experience in this. So we got together and looked at the material and thought, yeah, we could really teach this to people. So together we kind of led a small group through specific training on how to minister to those that are going through cancer and their families. I want to say here that we had a lot of other help other than the people that went through the care ministry training. Some of you weren't able to go through the training with us at this time, and I want to say we could not have done this without you. We were barely getting up on our feet, and you guys are already in motion, and we could not have done this without you, so thank you. And I want to reiterate what Paul said. As a pastor, this team is a valuable resource, because contrary to popular belief, a pastor can't be everywhere at one time. And we don't have that superpower, but it's great to have a team that you can count on like this to areas of visitation, especially in medical facilities, because those are just always scattered, and it's always hard to get to all of them at one time. So as we prepare to close today and the worship team comes back up, I want you to think back to what I said earlier and maybe think about that one person that is meant for you to reach out to. Maybe you don't know who that is yet. Maybe you need to pray to ask God to reveal that to you. The altar is open for that today. At this time, I'm going to have Todd to come up, and I'm going to call the care team up one at a time. Todd's going to present them with a certificate. I think I'm going to have them stand right in front of the stage here. Then I want to pray over them as a team. But then during the response time, when we start singing, if you feel led to come and pray over one of these people, you can do that at that time. So first is Judy Paxson. She is my co-leader. And the experience she brings to this team is
One up there or right here?
okay, y'all stand down there.
She gets to do what she wants.
Wendy Miller. Wendy gets into a lot of these things just by default, by being my wife, but Wendy's great. She can walk into a room and know exactly what to say. So, Tina Cox. Tina is always great behind the scenes. When I ask her to have something done, she's already probably got it done before I even mention it. Chloe Staney. Chloe is a wonderful help to us. She has retired completely this year and decided to serve others after her retirement. That's great. Chris Raskin. Chris is a wonderful asset to our team. She actually works in the medical field, so she can explain a lot of stuff to us when we have questions. Colleen Claiborne. Colleen is a cancer survivor herself. She has a heart for those that are going through cancer. So we add her to the team today. And Vicki Sampson. Vicki is also a cancer survivor, and she has a heart to reach others.
You know, I don't know if you guys noticed something. They're all women.
So if you
Hopefully
want
you
to
noticed
join
that.
the care team,
So we need some more gentlemen on the care team. And so if you are interested in being a part of that, listen, there's all kinds of parts of the care team. And so it doesn't mean that you're always at the hospital. It might mean you're back praying for someone. It might mean that you're setting up details or meal trains and things like that. There's all kinds of pieces of it. So come see Tracy if you're interested in that.
so I want to pray over this group as a whole. And then after I get done, if you want to come up and pray for an individual or the group as a whole, you're welcome to do that too. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for what's happened here today, Father. Father, we thank you for Paul and Rebecca and their story, and we hope that their story is inspirational to others and that it will reach others, Father. Father, I thank you for this team that you've assembled here today, Father. We didn't assemble it, you did. You orchestrated all this. Father, I thank you for their willingness to serve, their willingness to be with people that are going through probably the toughest time in their life, Father. For them to be able to go in and go deep with them and to help them, Father. Just be there for them. And just be available for them, Father. Father, would you bless this ministry? Would you bless these people as we commission them out today to serve those in our church and as time allows, those outside of our church too, Father, that are struggling with cancer or illness or anything like that, Father. Father, may everything we do as this ministry honor and glorify you, Father. Father, I thank you again for this